There are places you pass that never existed, moments that vanish from time, and people who return changed. Tonight we bring you 10 stories, each one whispered by those who brushed against the edge of reality. Stories of time warps, looping lives, glitching memories, and destinations that shouldn't be on any map. These are not tales of fiction. They're the confessions, journals, and desperate recordings of real people who claim they slipped out of the world you know. Whether you believe them or not, that's up to you. But after tonight, you might start watching reality a little closer. Top 5 real people who glitched out of reality and came back changed. Let's begin with the first story, the gas station that didn't exist. Ethan just needed gas. But what he found on that empty road wasn't meant to exist anymore, or anywhere. Ethan Collins was a rational man, a software engineer, the kind of guy who double-checks locks, saves receipts, and never leaves a drink unfinished. He didn't believe in ghosts, time warps, or glitchy realities, not until the night everything he believed quietly fractured. On a forgotten desert highway in northern New Mexico, it started simply. Ethan was on a solo road trip, a personal ritual he'd done every summer since college. This time, he was driving from Denver to Santa Fe. No interstates, just back roads, desert air, and silence. He liked the quiet, until it became too quiet. It was just past 1 a.m. The stars overhead shimmered like they were stuck in place, too bright, too still. His car's dashboard blinked a warning, low fuel. He glanced at his phone. No signal, not even a bar. He hadn't seen another car in nearly an hour. The road curved sharply, then dipped into a shallow valley, and that's when he saw it. A faint red glow in the distance, a sign. It flickered like a dying ember. As he got closer, he could make it out. Fuel, written in blocky neon, one letter at a time, humming softly in the dry wind. It sat above a squat, single-story gas station that looked like it hadn't seen customers in decades. Weather-beaten walls, one rusted pump, a tilted Coca-Cola sign out front. There was a faint buzzing sound, like an old TV set left on static. Still, Ethan pulled in. What choice did he have? The pump didn't have a card reader, just a coin slot and a faded lever. He walked toward the glass booth, where a man in his 60s sat motionless behind the counter, smoking. His eyes were dull, expression blank, like someone who had stopped expecting anything from life. Ethan tapped the window. The man didn't flinch, just slid the glass open and muttered, "Cash only." Ethan handed him a 20. The man gave a slow nod, handed back a few crumpled bills, then pointed at pump 1. Not a word more. As Ethan pumped the gas, he noticed something strange. The air smelled wrong. Not gasoline, not desert. Almost like burnt matches and rain, even though the sky was perfectly clear. He looked around. No cameras, no cars, no background hum of civilization. Just wind, sand, and this station suspended in nowhere. He finished filling up, got back in the car, and turned on the radio. Static. Then suddenly, an old jazz track crackled to life. Louis Armstrong? Or someone trying to sound like him? But the weird part, it wasn't coming from any station. He was playing a CD, one he didn't remember bringing. The road back was easier than expected. After 15 minutes, he reconnected with a main highway and coasted into Santa Fe by 3 a.m. When he checked into his hotel, he casually mentioned the little station to the night clerk, asked if it was new. The clerk's face changed instantly, eyes wide, smile gone. "You said you filled up out there. Where exactly?" Ethan pointed it out on a map. "Just north of Elmore Bend." The clerk slowly shook his head. "That place hasn't been there in years," he said. "It burned down in 1971. Whole family inside. They say it never got rebuilt." Ethan blinked. "No, it's there. The guy, he took my 20. The sign still works." The clerk just looked at him. "That's impossible." Ethan went to bed that night unable to sleep. He tossed, turned, even pulled out the crumpled gas receipt from his wallet. It was yellowing, faintly inked, dated July 8th, 1971. He hadn't noticed the date before. His phone, he realized, had somehow jumped back 3 hours that night. The car clock, too. He wrote it off as a bug, maybe a battery issue. But deep down, something was off. The next morning, he drove back, retraced every turn, past the same bent road signs, the same twisted juniper trees. But when he reached the valley, there was nothing. Just cracked concrete, a rusted pole, scorch marks, and brittle weeds. He got out of the car and stood there, frozen. In the dirt, he noticed what looked like an old pump handle, half buried, and near it, an oil-stained footprint, his own, fresh. Ethan never spoke of it again, not even to his closest friends, but that tank of gas, it lasted 732 miles, more than double his car's range. And no matter how many times he checks his glove box, the receipt is gone. Ethan made it out of the desert, but part of him still wonders if something else got in.
Next is a story that starts with a simple morning jog and ends outside of time. David was a creature of habit. Every morning before work, he'd lace up his running shoes and jog the same wooded trail behind his suburban neighborhood in Oregon. A 6 a.m. jog, headphones in, sunrise peeking through the trees, same loop, same time. Every day. But one Thursday morning, something was off. He said the trail seemed longer, not in distance, but in time. He normally finished his run in 35 minutes. That morning, he checked his phone after what felt like a full jog. The clock read 7:49 a.m. An hour and 49 minutes had passed, but he hadn't stopped. He hadn't slowed. No injury, no phone distraction. He even remembered passing the usual landmarks, the old wooden bridge, the hollow oak, the small pond. Nothing had changed, except maybe it had. It felt like the trees were watching me, he told a Reddit thread months later. Like they knew I didn't belong there anymore. That evening, he couldn't shake the feeling. So the next morning, he brought his smartwatch to track GPS. Same trail, same time. But halfway through the run, the GPS lost signal. For 17 full minutes. The tracking line on the map skipped across a blank area like a glitch. He never lost signal there before, not once. Then came the strangest thing of all. 3 days later, David received a package. No return address. Inside was a single item, a Polaroid photo of him, jogging, from behind. On that trail. The timestamp was marked in faded pen. 7:22 a.m. Thursday. The very day of the lost time. He never saw another person on that trail. Not before, not that day, not ever. David moved cities within the year. But he says, sometimes when he jogs, his GPS still skips. And he still gets that feeling that something or someone is watching him.
The third story follows a quiet walk home in the rain, that ended in a world no longer her own. After one story is sheep, the rain had been falling all afternoon. By the time Emily left the bookstore, the streets were slick with reflections and the air smelled like wet pavement and electricity. She didn't mind the rain, but she would soon realize she had stepped into something else, a version of the world that looked like hers, but wasn't. Emily, 26, worked part-time at a used bookstore in Portland. It was cozy, filled with quiet regulars and the smell of old pages. On this particular Thursday, a thunderstorm rolled in late afternoon. When she left work at 6:30 p.m., the rain was steady, the sky dim. She decided to walk home. It was only 8 blocks, but by the second block, something felt strange. The streetlights were on, but flickering. The colors of the buildings looked faded. The corner shop she always passed, Murphy's Groceries, wasn't there. In its place was an old, boarded-up hardware store with no signage. She stopped, looked around. Her phone screen had static on it, actual static, like an old TV. She wiped it off. Nothing changed. She kept walking. When she reached her apartment building, her key didn't work. Same building, same name on the buzzer, but her name wasn't on the resident list.
I live here,
she told the security guy through the glass. He shook his head.
No one named Emily's ever lived here, ma'am.
That's when she noticed something else. The sky had no stars, just a strange, pale glow, like a screen behind clouds. She wandered for hours. Every street looked familiar, but wrong, like it had been copied, but not quite perfectly. Finally, she sat on a bench in the rain and cried. That's when she saw herself walk past. Dry, smiling, earbuds in. A double. The other Emily entered the real apartment building with a key and disappeared inside. Then the sky blinked.
not lightning like a monitor refresh.
A loud buzz filled the air, and then everything snapped back. Emily was standing in front of her apartment. Her key worked. The stars were back. The grocery store had returned, but her phone still has that photo she didn't take. A photo of her, sitting on a bench in the rain, staring up at the sky.
The fourth story begins with a rainy bus ride, and ends somewhere no map could ever find. Marcus was 17 and commuting home from school in a small town outside Manchester. That day, it had been pouring since morning. His hoodie and backpack were soaked by the time he boarded the usual 5:35 p.m. bus. The windows were fogged. The lights buzzed overhead. Only 3 other passengers. Nothing unusual. Until Marcus looked up and realized the driver wasn't the usual one. This man was older, wore gloves, and never spoke a word. But still, same route, same turns. Until they passed the bridge. The bus had never taken a left after the bridge, but today it did. Marcus thought maybe it was a detour. But the buildings started to change. More spaced out, older looking, unfamiliar. He asked another passenger, "Where's this headed?" The man just blinked, didn't answer. He looked hollow. Another woman just stared out the window, unmoving. After 20 minutes, Marcus got up and asked the driver to stop. No reply. The road outside looked endless. Mist covered everything. Then, the street signs stopped making sense. Symbols instead of letters. Like something trying to look like a language but not quite getting it right. Marcus banged on the glass. The driver didn't flinch. The rain grew heavier. The bus slowed. Finally, it stopped. In front of a long, empty building made of black stone. The doors opened. No one moved. Marcus got off. As soon as his feet touched the wet ground, the bus closed its doors and vanished. Not drove away, vanished. He stood alone in the rain. No phone signal, no streetlights. Then he saw it. A sign hanging above the building. His own name, Marcus Chambers. Arrival, 6:06 p.m. The doors creaked open. He ran. Eventually, after what felt like hours of walking through endless rain, he came back onto a street he recognized. A normal bus passed. He flagged it down. Same route, same people, same driver. Except the date on the phone said 3 days later, and no one at school remembered him missing.
This last story begins with a wrong turn and a house that was never meant to exist. One overcast evening, Sam was driving home from work, taking his usual route through the suburbs. The rain had just started, that soft, misty kind of drizzle that blurred headlights and soaked the streets. He didn't know why, but that night, he took a different street. Maybe to avoid traffic, maybe just curiosity. He didn't even remember turning the wheel, but suddenly he was on a narrow road lined with tall pine trees. That's when he saw it. A house. Not just any house, but a Victorian-style mansion that looked like it belonged in a different century. Ornate metalwork on the gate, vines crawling up stone pillars, and a soft, warm glow leaking from its windows, cutting through the rain. It didn't feel abandoned, but it didn't feel alive either. Sam slowed the car. There was something pulling him toward it, an unease mixed with fascination. He didn't get out. He just stared at it, heart beating heavier with each breath. He tried to take a picture. His phone glitched, froze, then rebooted itself. Moments later, a car's horn snapped him back. Someone behind him, angry, flashing lights. Sam looked ahead again. And the house was gone. Not like it vanished, like it had never been there. Just trees, a flat lawn, an empty lot. Sam turned the car around and circled the block 3 times. No gate, no driveway, no house. The next morning, shaken and curious, he went back during daylight. He checked the map. No such address, no property records, no foundation, nothing but grass and trees. But the image of the house haunted him. 3 months later, while browsing old estate listings out of morbid curiosity, he saw it again. Same gate, same architecture, same exact angle of the shot. But the listing was from 1911. The house had burned down in a fire over 100 years ago. These stories may seem disconnected. A traveler, a child, a gas station in the wrong year. But if you listen closely, they echo one another. Something is slipping, breaking, and those who see through the cracks never return the same.
Which story haunted you the most? Which one felt too real to ignore?
Let us know below. And if you want more tales from the edges of time and truth, subscribe.